You're about to learn why Japanese engines routinely outlast everything else on the road. And it starts with something so simple, you'll wonder why you haven't been doing it all along. It's not a magic additive. It's not some exotic engineering secret locked away in a Tokyo vault. It's an oil change interval, and the philosophy behind it that most Western drivers have completely ignored for decades. Here's the number that should grab your attention. The industry average, the chance that any given car will make it to 250,000 miles, is 4.8%. Less than 5 out of every 100 cars will ever see 250,000 miles on the odometer. Now compare that to the Toyota Sequoia, which carries a 39.1% chance of hitting that same milestone. That's more than 8 times the average. And Toyota isn't alone. They occupy 10 of the top 25 spots in the 2025 iSeeCars study, which analyzed almost 400 million cars. Lexus, Honda, and Acura are the only other brands that beat the industry average, and every single one of them is Japanese. So what do they know that most drivers don't? It starts with the oil change itself, because this is where the Japanese approach breaks sharply from what you've probably been told. If you're like most drivers, you've heard the modern advice. Change your oil every 10,000 miles, maybe 15,000. Some manufacturers are now pushing 25,000-mile intervals with synthetic oil, and that probably sounds great. Less hassle, less money, fewer trips to the shop. In Japan, the standard oil change interval is 5,000 kilometers. That's roughly 3,100 miles. Some drivers stretch it to 7,000 kilometers, maybe 10,000 if they're running high-quality synthetic and doing a lot of highway driving. But the baseline sits at about half, sometimes a third of what Western manufacturers recommend. Before you dismiss that as overkill, you need to understand something. This isn't paranoia, and it isn't based on outdated advice from the 1970s. It's based on how driving actually works. Think about your daily routine. You start the car, drive a few miles to work, park it, drive a few miles home. Maybe you run errands on the weekend. Stop and go traffic, short trips where the engine never fully reaches optimal operating temperature. That type of driving is classified as severe duty, and it's what most drivers are actually doing, even if they don't realize it. Oil breaks down faster under those conditions, accumulating moisture, fuel dilution, and combustion byproducts more quickly when the engine doesn't get hot enough for long enough to burn that stuff off. Japanese drivers, especially those in dense urban areas like Tokyo and Osaka, face some of the most brutal stop-and-go conditions on the planet. And rather than assuming their oil is fine for another 5,000 miles, they change it based on how the vehicle has actually been driven, not based on an optimistic manufacturer recommendation designed to make ownership look cheaper on paper. That distinction matters more than most people realize. But the oil change interval is just the beginning. What really separates Japanese car culture from the rest of the world is a philosophy, and it has a name: Kaizen. The word breaks into 2 parts, Kai meaning change and Zen meaning for the better. Continuous improvement. It's the foundation Toyota was built on, and it doesn't just apply to the factory floor. It applies to how millions of Japanese drivers think about maintaining their vehicles every single day. You've probably heard Kaizen mentioned in business contexts. Lean manufacturing, efficiency optimization, all of that. Applied to car ownership, though, it means something beautifully simple. You don't wait for problems, you prevent them. Every service, every fluid change, every small adjustment becomes an opportunity to leave the vehicle better than you found it, and that mindset produces results you can actually measure. The average car in most markets lasts about 8 years or 150,000 miles. Japanese cars on average last up to 13 years or 200,000 miles, and they typically need fewer repairs during that extended lifespan. That's 5 extra years of reliable transportation, and that's not a small difference. The full Japanese maintenance approach goes well beyond oil, though, so let's walk through what it actually looks like. You already know about the shorter oil change intervals. Japanese drivers who rack up serious mileage also let their engines warm up for about 30 to 60 seconds before pulling away. That might sound pointless, but consider what's happening inside your engine the moment you start it. The oil has settled to the bottom of the oil pan overnight. It's cold, thick, and sluggish. When you fire the engine and immediately drive hard, you're asking metal components to grind against each other with minimal lubrication. That 30 to 60-second pause lets the oil circulate, coat the bearings, reach the valve train, and actually do its job before you put any real load on the engine. Asking it to perform before that happens is like sprinting before you've even stretched. You can do it, but eventually something tears. Coolant system care is another one most people overlook, and this statistic tends to change minds fast. Cooling system failures account for approximately 25% of all engine failures, and most of that damage traces back to corrosion from neglected coolant. 1 in 4 engines that dies could have survived with a simple flush and coolant replacement on schedule. In Japan, that service is non-negotiable. The coolant gets flushed on time every time. Transmission fluid follows the same thinking. In the West, there's a persistent myth that transmission fluid is a lifetime fluid, that it never needs changing. Japanese maintenance culture rejects that completely. The fluid gets replaced before problems appear, not after. By the time you notice slipping or rough shifts, the damage is already done. The whole point is to never reach that stage. Timing belts follow the same hard logic. If the manufacturer specifies replacement at 100,000 miles, it gets replaced at 100,000 miles. Not 110,000, not next month. Because if a timing belt snaps on an interference engine, and many engines are interference engines, the pistons slam into the valves and you're facing thousands of dollars in damage or a completely destroyed motor. That replacement interval isn't a suggestion, it's a deadline. And tying all of this together is one habit that separates serious high-mileage drivers from everyone else: record keeping. Many Japanese drivers who run exceptional mileage maintain detailed logs of every service performed on their vehicle, every oil change, every fluid swap, every noise that came and went. Over years and decades, that logbook becomes a remarkable document telling you exactly what's been done, when it happened, and what to watch for next. It transforms maintenance from guesswork into a system. Now, does any of this actually produce cars that go truly extraordinary distances in the real world? Let me tell you about Victor Sheppard. Sheppard is a hotshot driver from Louisiana who got his first Toyota back in 1988, right after graduating college, and never looked back. In 2007, he bought a Toyota Tundra with a 4.7-liter V8 and then drove it relentlessly. He hauled loads across Louisiana and beyond, stacking up highway miles at a pace most people can barely imagine. By 2016, that Tundra had crossed 1 million miles. 1 million. And here's the part that really matters. The engine and transmission were never replaced. Original drivetrain, 1 million miles later. His approach was straightforward. He changed the oil once a month, which for his driving pattern of mostly highway use worked out to roughly every 10,000 miles. He logged 117 dealership visits over 8 years, had every single service performed at a dealership, and kept the paperwork for all of it. A literal paper trail documenting every oil change, every filter, every inspection. As one automotive journalist noted at the time, that level of documentation is typically unheard of. Toyota was so impressed that they traded him a brand new 2016 Tundra in exchange for his million-mile truck. They wanted to study it. Engineers tore it down bumper to bumper, top to bottom, evaluating how the quality and durability they designed in had held up over 1 million miles of real-world use. Mike Swears, Toyota's Technical Center chief truck engineer, said at the time, "Having a million-mile truck in as pristine condition as this one with original parts is a truly rare find." That original Tundra was later displayed at Toyota's San Antonio truck plant as a symbol of the model's durability. And here's where the story gets even better. The brand new 2016 Tundra that Toyota gave him, he actually kept driving his 2014 Tundra instead, a truck he'd bought along the way. On April 9, 2025, at 5:34 p.m. Eastern Time, that 2014 Tundra also crossed 1 million miles. Victor Sheppard has now driven two separate Toyota Tundras past 1 million miles each. 2 million miles combined, two trucks, the same basic approach. Regular maintenance, quality parts, and meticulous record-keeping. He's not alone either. Matt Farah, the automotive journalist, bought a Lexus LS 400 in 2014 with 897,000 miles already on it. He paid $1,500 for it, and by February 2019, he'd pushed it past 1 million miles. Aaron Morvant, another Louisiana hotshot driver, has his own million-mile Tundra story. These aren't flukes, they're proof of concept. There's another piece of this puzzle worth knowing about, and it's uniquely Japanese. It's called Kaizen, and it's one of the most stringent vehicle inspection systems in the world. For passenger cars in Japan, the first inspection happens 3 years after initial registration, then every 2 years after that. The inspections are thorough and expensive, typically running between 100,000 and 200,000 yen, which works out to roughly 800 to 1,600 US dollars. The Kaizen system is so rigorous and costly that many Japanese car owners actually sell their vehicles before the next inspection rather than invest in the maintenance required to pass. This creates something fascinating for the global market. A steady supply of well-maintained, relatively low-mileage Japanese cars flowing into the export pipeline. If you've ever wondered why Japanese domestic market vehicles show up overseas in such exceptional condition, Kaizen is a large part of that answer. For the owners who do keep their cars through multiple Kaizen inspections, though, the system essentially enforces a standard of maintenance that most other countries never require. You can't neglect your car and pass Kaizen. It simply won't happen. Japanese engineering philosophy plays a role here that goes beyond maintenance habits as well. Toyota's approach to vehicle design is rooted in what they call jidoka, automation with a human touch, and their engineers design components to withstand significantly more stress than typical use will ever generate. This is deliberate over-engineering. Parts that could theoretically survive 100,000 miles are built to handle 300,000. Bearings, gaskets, suspension components, all of it receives that treatment. As iSeeCars executive analyst Carl Brower put it, Japanese cars have a well-earned reputation for high quality and durability. What we see is a list of highly durable vehicles capable of more than 250,000 miles of use if properly maintained. That last phrase is the key. If properly maintained. This isn't a story without nuance, though. Not every Japanese engine is perfect. Toyota has produced some engines with high oil consumption issues. Honda has dealt with fuel dilution problems in certain models. And there's a reason the saying goes that Nissan engine longevity is unknown because the transmissions don't last long enough to find out. Buying a Japanese car doesn't automatically mean it'll run forever. There's also a legitimate debate about whether 5,000-kilometer oil changes are necessary with modern synthetic oils. Some mechanics and engineers argue that high-quality synthetics genuinely can run 10,000 or even 15,000 miles between changes under ideal conditions. The Japanese approach would counter that most driving conditions aren't ideal, and the cost of one extra oil change per year is negligible compared to the cost of engine damage. Modern turbocharged and hybrid powertrains add another layer of complexity, creating operating conditions that can be harder on oil than a naturally aspirated engine cruising at steady highway speeds. But here's what all of this comes down to, and it's the real thing you should carry away from this. The Japanese oil change secret isn't really about oil, it's about attitude. It's about changing your oil at 3,000 to 5,000 miles instead of pushing it to 10,000 because the long-term payoff is worth the short-term inconvenience. It's about flushing your coolant on schedule because you know that 25% of engine failures start right there. It's about replacing your transmission fluid before it becomes a problem instead of after. It's about giving your engine 30 seconds to circulate oil before you load it up. It's about keeping a log of every service you perform, building a maintenance history that turns your vehicle from a mystery into a known quantity. treating your car not as a disposable appliance, but as a machine that will reward you with years of reliable service if you simply take care of it. The average car on the road today has a 4.8% chance of reaching 250,000 miles. A Toyota carries a 17.8% chance. The Toyota Sequoia sits at 39.1%. Victor Sheppard drove 2 Tundras past 1 million miles each. The gap between those numbers and the industry average isn't engineering alone, it's maintenance philosophy. You now know the secret. And it was never really a secret at all. Most people just don't want to hear that the answer is discipline, consistency, and a little extra effort spread across the life of the vehicle. The Japanese figured that out a long time ago, and the results have been speaking for themselves ever since. The question is whether you're going to keep pushing your oil to 10,000 miles and hoping for the best, or whether you're going to adopt the mindset that's been carrying engines past 600,000 miles and beyond for decades. Your engine is waiting to find out. Like and subscribe.